Hello, everyone. Welcome to Going D1 Real Recruiting Stories with Joel Groon and Gunnar Groon. Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm excited to introduce a friend of mine, Steve Daniels, who's been successful in the D1 process at a I guess, pretty amazing level. His son JT Daniels went to Mater Dei, similar to the same coaching staff as my son Bowden as well, and they have played together. They played together at Rice, and that's kind of how we really connected. Anyways, I'm excited to have him on the podcast, and think he's got amazing insights into the D1 football scene and D1 recruiting in general. So thanks, Steve, for joining us. Really appreciate it and really excited about this.
Sure. Gunnar, Joel, great to be on the podcast here. Looking forward to having some fun. And so JT deciding to go to Mater Dei, that actually he was like 11 years old, and it was like a Saturday night, and it's bedtime. Mom's already in bed, and he whispers, "Hey, Dad, how about we stay up and watch football?" I'm like, "Oh, all right, right, of course, right." Like our kids know how to work us a little bit. So we turn on the NFL network, and they've got high school rivalries on. And it turns out it's Mater Dei versus Servite, Leinart versus Berlin, and 24-21 game. Mater Dei pulls it out with a field goal at the end, and Rollinson got interviewed with his raspy voice, right? And pride, poison, courage, and all the great things that Mater Dei stands for. And that was it. He's like, "Dad, I want to go to a camp." And at this point, I'm living in Irvine, and we had been there for a few years. We came from Chicago, is where he was born, but I had not looked at high schools whatsoever. So I Googled Mater Dei High School, and serendipity was on our side. It was 15 minutes from the house, right down the road. So he started going to Mater Dei camps when he was, in sixth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and that was pretty much it for him. Once he started going to camps, and Dave Money, who was probably the greatest offensive coordinator in high school history, 30 years of coaching football players or quarterbacks, and everyone but one went D1, which is an incredible feat to this day, right? So that was he started going to camps, and once he was going to camps, it was all done. So it
So
was from there.
I got sort of a follow-up question for that. Did he, once he started going to camps, was he still somewhat interested in any other sports, or at that point was it only about football?
Yeah, so he played baseball and basketball as well. He was done with baseball at maybe 11, 10 or 11, and that was honestly a favor for his mom. His mom just did not enjoy baseball, and
Yeah.
and he wanted to do more football stuff, so he started doing 7-on-7 instead of
Oh,
baseball,
nice.
off
Nice.
season
And then
seven
he
on
stuck with
seven. But
basketball for a little bit longer.
yeah, he played basketball up until he got to Mater Dei.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
And so then, he starts going to camps when he's 11, sixth grade, that kind of thing. Did you see any sort of like development, I guess, like within that Mater Dei kind of system as he went to these camps throughout middle school? Like, could you tell that there was sort of a tension throughout middle school, or how did that kind of go?
Yeah, he started playing quarterback when he was like 9, and after his 9-year-old flags, or not flag, but little league season, he played for the Irvine Chargers. We actually back then we were running a double wing, and we never passed the ball once. We got into the quarterfinals, and I mean we just blew everyone out. We got to the semifinals against Carson, and Carson put 11 guys in the box, and we had no answer. So the head coach said, "Hey, JT profiles to be a quarterback. Let's start getting him trained to be a quarterback. So before that, he was a running back and linebacker kind of kid, and just started playing when he was 10. And it was very obvious that he could layer a ball very early on. So you could see the talent was there. And so he was going to Mater Dei for the camps and stuff. And I personally was working a ton in the central and eastern part of the country. And when he was 12, I decided to take a year off of work and reconnect with the family. I was just burning it on both ends way too much. And so I decided to take a year off and just reconnect with the family. And what we did is, he wanted to go to any camp he could go to, any competition he could go to. So we just started going to things like football university and any camps and 7-on-7 things we could go to. And he would stand in line with his ball, and at these competitions, you got a ball and you wait in line, you get 3 reps and you get back in line. And he just thrived at that stuff. He really just kind of settled in and was very good right out of the gate going to these camps. And that kind of helped give him a national profile as he was getting older, 13, 14, 15. And so that was a long-winded way of saying about 12, he was incredibly passionate about the game and showed very, very, strong ability to throw a ball very accurately, very, very anticipatory in his reads. And the Mater Dei, the best thing about Mater Dei is they just teach you how to play the game, starting from fronts and blocking schemes. And once you get all that down, then you get to route concepts, etc. And he was just a sponge with that stuff. Just loved to listen to it, explain it, and execute it. So
Right.
between Mater Dei's helping him understand the game and how to play it with more of a cerebral approach, and his God-given ability to throw the ball accurately, on time, on target, he really took off from there.
Yeah. And so then I guess so obviously like Mater Dei is, it's private, so they're able to bring in kids that they want. How did they know that they wanted JT? Because obviously, he didn't go to any other high school, like he didn't switch high schools. He went to Mater Dei as a freshman. How did he get on their radar? Was it from the camps? Was it from,
Yeah, so Mater Dei had already had a really big name in terms of quarterbacks in particular, because of all those kids going D1. So and I don't know if all the other big schools were having camps. I honestly, I just don't know. But virtually everybody that had the idea or wanted to be a quarterback at all came through Mater Dei camps.
Right.
So I mean, literally, you name them, they were through those camps, from LA down to San Diego and Inland Empire, of course, Orange County came through. And so when JT ended up going, he was he was a known commodity, and they immediately put him on the varsity team as the 2, with Matt McDonald was
as a freshman when he got there.
Yeah, but money didn't see any value in putting him on the younger
Right.
teams. His money really took to JT because of his aptitude, and of course he could throw the ball well. So it was very, very obvious that they were going to give JT an opportunity to compete, and he ended up being the starter game 2. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So in terms of the number 2, what was JT's mindset being, the backup quarterback for Mater Dei, and what was he thinking about in terms of his competitiveness and his desire to be the starter, and how did he view the, I guess, that role as opposed to being the number 1? And additionally, what was his mindset with the cerebral side of it? Was that something that the cerebral side was was more important to him, or something that he really focused on? Because I know that college coaches, I've spoken to college coaches about it, and I just felt like he was an exceptional cerebral quarterback and did really well with just the whole mindset of it and the decision making and everything else. And so I'm curious, number one, how he responded to a competitive situation, being the number two, and also, what was it about the cerebral part that really enabled him to excel? Because I know lots of people have been very impressed with the cerebral component of his game.
Yeah, so the number two, he hated it, right? He wanted to be, he felt like he just did everything he could until he was ultimately the one. So little lady luck, right? McDonald broke his wrist in the first half of game two. JT was supposed to play the second half of that game in game two. He was supposed to come in the first game as well. But it just didn't work out. And then in game two, he came in and just never looked back from once he got in. But yeah, he's, actually it's pretty prideful thing to say. JT has been in competitions at, four different colleges, at Mater Dei, in all-star games, it used to be called the Army game. Now I'm not sure what it's called, but it's one of the biggest games. It's not the Adidas game. It was a Nike game, whatever, the U.S. Army game. Anyways, he went into that and was the starter in that as well. I mean, literally, he's never been in a competition and not won the job through spring or through tryouts. Every single place he's been, every single time, he's been the one. Starting when he was in eighth grade, playing with a 7-on-7 team named B2G, which was Ron Allen started that. Still a great guy, very local supporter of the young kids. But before 7-on-7 really blew up, B2G was the team in the country to play for. Literally, the Powers, the guy that was he was the Big Ten commissioner that brought in that got USC and UCLA to come out to the Big Ten. That guy, he would fly his kid in from, at the time he was the chief operating officer for the Vikings, and he would fly his son into play with B2G in games. And it was kind of cool listening to him, because everyone else is rooting their kids on, and Mr. Powers is over there. And if I'm saying his name wrong, I'm pretty sure Powers was his last name, but it may have been his first name. But anyways, you could hear him talking about, if they don't give us $70 billion, we're not building the stadium. Just kind of interesting dudes to see at those games from some of the firepower there.
So JT was always the number one, a relentless competitor to be the starter, and that was always a pattern for him.
Injuries really were probably the biggest thing that derailed a longer career. So obviously, so.
And so, once he got to Mater Dei and he started his high school career, how did you see him? How did you see him develop as he, as a quarterback, as a player, as an athlete in general, over the years that he was there? And then, also how did that start translating into opportunities for college?
He got his first offers at the tail end of his freshman year, but you could because he was such a student of the game. Not his freshman year, but his sophomore year, money would the number one play of the game, 80 to 90% of the plays of the game were formation, check with me. So he would go to the line of scrimmage and see alignment and decide what, passing concepts, or, sometimes he'd even have the ball ran, but very infrequently, right? It's pretty funny when you let a quarterback call his own plays, he's going to call some passes.
Yeah, and then
so Dave had confidence in JT, and they knew each other well, and he had him on kind of on autopilot and let him do his thing.
Pretty much. I mean, we had such a talented team and very cerebral team across the board. I mean, Amon Ra, who's, still playing in the NFC Championship game coming up this weekend, was his number one. Osiris, the Osiris St. Brown and Amon both transferred in when JT came in at the same time, and those guys set up every record there was to be set at Mater Dei together. Osiris first, and then Amon. But lots of talent and a coach that was, it's funny. You see some coaches. It feels like coaches, they're getting paid a lot of money in college to call plays. And so, they win, lose, or draw, they want it to be them that made that call, right? They don't want to have some kid mess up a call. But what was interesting about Money was he was very comfortable with JT making those calls, and I talked to him about it, and I just over time we became great friends, of course, and he said, look, those are all my plays. He's just implementing the best ones. It's all the stuff we put in for the plan for the week, right? All the plays that we thought would work, those were at his disposal. So they're all my plays. They're just, or that we came up with collectively, but they were implemented from the best view that we had as an organization. He can see it a lot better over center than I can. He can see if someone just came out and there's a new D-back in, there so many times you'd see that happen, and bam, it was a play at that new guy, right? Like it should be. You take advantage of the matchups. So a lot of fun seeing that go down, and was a magical time. Mater Dei was from the late 90s until 2016 or so. They had not won a league title, even let alone a state championship or Southern California championship. So it was a lot of fun to get there, and JT and a bunch of his buddies ended up coming on over, and it was never the lack of coaching. It was, we just didn't have as much firepower as some of the other programs did in that drought time frame, and it's pretty fun. It's a source of pride to see Mater Dei do so well since then. I think they win the national championship darn near every year, so pretty cool.
So what was the kind of turning point, or I guess like how did JT, we went over how he got there, but how was it that like everybody came to Mater Dei? What was so attractive about Mater Dei that they suddenly got that influx of player quality that they hadn't had before?
Well, I think I started going to JT. We knew he was going to Mater Dei, and so I would take him to the games when he was in 7th and 8th grade to be the ball boy, and I would I would drop him off early, like they wanted, and Mater Dei tailgates like a college, like a D1 college, right? So I would go across the street and hang out with the folks across the street, which were a lot of the boosters and a lot of alumni from many years. And over a little period of time, we just started talking, and they really emphasized the desire to get as much talent as possible into the program. And as any parent, you want your children to be surrounded by as much talent as possible. So we just, JT and I made a very conscious effort to talk to parents that we played with. He would talk to the players, I talked to the parents about coming to Mater Dei and being part of something to bring championships back to a program. And everyone knew who Rawlinson was and what an amazing coach and staff that he had. It took a little bit of impetus for a couple of the better players in the area to go. It was really, I think, the turning point was JT and his receiver. His last year of youth ball was Brew McCoy, or his ex-receiver, if you will. So when JT and Brew both decided to go to Mater Dei, all their buddies from the Inland Empire, most all of them ended up coming to Mater Dei as well. And once you start getting a bunch of good players to go to a place, you build some momentum, and those classes are pretty special classes. There's several guys in the NFL right now that played in that with those guys from basically 2015 on.
That's cool. So you guys kind of, you got a couple people to come with you, and then that sort of led to a cascade of other people saying like, hey, these high quality players are going to Mater Dei, and we know they've got good coaches. That seems like a good place to be.
Exactly, exactly. And then, became a big feeder school from the Inland Empire Ducks, guy by the name of Pat Dubar, who's incredible coach slash recruiter, was a former Mater Dei guy himself. And he went from the Ducks to coach at Mater Dei. And Keith Pearson, the coach that ran that thing, is the best recruiter that ever lived. Not in college ball anyways. Really started, the kids from those Inland Empire Ducks really started coming to the program. So the rest is history from there.
But JT didn't play for the Ducks, did he?
Played his last year of youth ball with the Ducks.
Oh, he did.
Okay, so he did play for the Ducks. I knew Pat Dubar was instrumental in getting a lot of Ducks players to Mater Dei. So I'm curious, with all that talent around JT, was that critical in getting him D1 exposure? Did it make a material difference in the whole recruiting process? Was that helpful for everyone involved? How did that play out, do you think, in terms of a recruiting tool for the players?
I think without question, the more talent you have around you, the easier it is to succeed, right? And clearly the goal was to have the best players possible that you could that wanted to go to the program into the program, and it just became it kind of just flowed from there. More and more good players saw good players coming in, championships started to be won, and it just kind of flowed from there. But in terms of JT's success, I mean, I don't know how. I can only imagine that it helped. Can't imagine it didn't.
Yeah. So then, I'm sorry, Dad, did you have something?
I was going to ask you whether or not the coaching staff and their processes with the college coaches was really material to JT's recruitment. One of the recent experiences I had with another son of ours, we were at a school and talking to the coach, and the coach's office actually was jammed with college coaches trying to understand kind of who the talent was on their team and the high school team. And from my experience at Mater Dei and other teams, in Southern California, there's so much recruiting done here and in other pockets of the country, but that's so different than, let's call it somewhere in the Midwest or East Coast or something where there's not as much exposure. Can you tell us about how that worked and what kind of benefit there was to you in terms of or to JT in terms of both exposure and decision making and knowledge from the coaches, because they have so much information that the players don't and the parents don't.
Yeah, so Mater Dei always had college coaches showing up when we had the McCoy and the St. Browns come in, and then and so many others. It only increased, right, significantly, and you've probably seen it, Joel, where I mean you could have 15, 20 coaches on the sidelines of just a Mater Dei practice. Right. And it's all Power 5 guys. So yeah, it was nuts, and an incredible recruiting tool to get more kids to people wanting to come to the same program. Right. You get that exposure. And so we were very blessed to be at Mater Dei, and having coaches come through left and right. His first offer was from Cal, and then I think Washington and Notre Dame also came in before the end of his freshman year. So it was very interesting. And very exciting times. And, just a couple things on recruiting that just, from what I've seen, maybe this is helpful for others. You see people there's guys that'll be out there saying, oh, get your son with me and, pay me, a couple grand and I'll get your son scholarships. And, that's a tough way to go. I don't really believe in any of that. I think if you want to, if you're interested in a school, you should go to when they have a camp and let their coaches check you out. And, you send your film in before, you try to get a relationship going with the position coach, and then you come to the camp and let the coaches see for themselves where you're at. Number one, just go to these marquee places or whatever you want to call them. Go to the programs, their camps, the colleges camps that you want to go to. Number one, and number two, especially if you're at a program like Mater Dei, trust a guy like Rawlinson to give you, the feedback that he's getting from the coaches that are coming in, and he'll position you the right way to, he's actually retired now, I guess, but the point is, going through your school, going directly to other schools is a far more proven way to get, committable scholarship offers. I guess that's one other thing I would talk about. These guys that come around and say they can get you offers. Yeah, if it's not a committable offer, it's probably, it's very likely BS. So, and when I say committable offer, that's something that any high school kid and family should know. When someone offers you, a college, they have no choice. They have to way over recruit the positions that they need to fill. If you need, if a team wants to bring in 3 running backs, they're probably talking to 12, and they've got them ranked, 1 to 12 on their board. And any of those guys could get offers, but if they've got 3 spots, the best way to tell if your offer is really legit is if you toss out there, hey, I love this place. I'm actually thinking about accepting right now, and just hear what they have to say. If they start backpedaling and maybe you should look around more, blah blah blah, then it's not a committable offer. If they say, we'd love to take you right now, let's do this, then you either take the offer or you backpedal out of taking it just then, but at least it's real.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you talk about committable offers, I think it's kind of interesting. One of the things that I found out was that there are programs that have tons of, or make a lot of different offers, and the reality is there was one Pac-12 program that at one point had a habit of committing 3 times the number of available scholarships in a particular year. And, it's really hard to know, how serious the offer is and where you stand on the depth chart. And so it's really crucial that athletes and parents know what they're dealing with. And I think, the insights that you have are helpful. So keep talking about that.
Just as simple as that, you can't, the coaches, they don't know where the kids are going to go. Recruiting a 16 to 17, 18-year-old kid is they're kids. So it's you can't blame the coaches for having to oversubscribe. How they do it, whatever, on that front, but at the end of the day, you can tell very quickly if they are officially going to, give you an offer by just asking if they'll take your commit. It's as simple as that. And that doesn't mean, it's all wordsmithing from there, right? You don't have to say, hey, I'm committing right now, but lean that way and see what they say. Like, hey man, I love this place. What kid doesn't, right? I think the first 5 campuses JT was on, within 3 hours, he's like, Dad, this is the one. I got to commit here. I want to commit here, right? And then I got to take him aside and walk him off the ledge a little bit, because these programs are so good at recruiting, right? So anyways, that's it, it's as simple as that to me. If someone's willing to take your commitment, they are very, very being very, they do want you. And if they say they don't, or if they waffle on that, then you probably don't have a committed offer. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to know that with your eyes wide open. There's nothing, there's nothing like having offers to get, the other coaches, they read the media stuff out there and the 247 sports and Rivals and all these guys, and they see who's getting offered. JT definitely got offers from people that never even came out to see him. They just wanted to be in the game, which I'm not sure the logic of that, but it happens. So keep those offers. Don't tell anyone it's a non-committed offer. Just realize that you got work to do before that school is going to take you, or would be willing to accept your commit.
And so, so how did you sort of see that college attention, I guess, like progress after his freshman year? How did that go sophomore year, junior year? At what point was USC involved? All that.
Yeah, so it was, he was going to Stanford. He wanted to study cognitive neurology at Stanford, and that was it. He was done. He was going to Stanford for sure. After 10 plus offers, that was the place. And that was his sophomore year. He was the first person that they offered in the 2019 class from Stanford. And Coach Shaw and Coach Bloomgren are just amazing, very cerebral guys. And that was it. And then more offers came in, of course, over time. And what ultimately Frank, and this is just, it's unfortunate, but it's real and it happens. You start getting you're having success, and you're the Gatorade this and the All-American that and all these things, and you start thinking to yourself, or as a family, we're like, okay, I mean, this kid, he's a guy, he's ready to play. Let's look at depth charts. He doesn't need to sit, right? He's ready to just keep on playing. Let's keep his development going. And once you start looking at it from that lens, you can make some decisions that may not be the best decisions. And unfortunately, that's what we did. I mean, JT, he knew that if he went to Stanford, number one, they wouldn't take him as an early entry, because at that point they weren't doing early entry stuff. So you couldn't come in spring and have that spring to be able to compete for the job. So that was, I mean, as silly as that sounds, that was what got us, what got JT away from Stanford. And so then, USC wasn't in on JT very early. Actually, USC came in very, very late. And it was interesting. Matt Corral had just decommitted from USC. Great kid. JT had played on teams with him in the All-American game and everything. Ultimately, I think they're still buddies today. But when Matt decommitted, they put the full court press on JT. And Matt was a 2018 commit. JT was a 2019 commit at the time. And so he was a 2019, and in the class of 2019, he ended up, they fell in love with him. They offered him and he accepted. And so that was kind of
so what year was that? What year was that?
His going into his junior year, he had committed. So and to your point, we were very blessed. There was so many different schools that wanted to talk to JT and get him on campus and et cetera. And Rawlinson was amazing at guiding that and making sure we knew everything that we could know, and he knew about every program and so he was a great mentor in so many ways, frankly, but in recruiting, absolutely. And so it ended up, he wanted to commit and just stop dealing with all the calls and et cetera. He just wanted to take it off the table. So he committed going into his junior year to USC, and what ended up happening, then they weren't able to secure anyone for 2018, a 2018 commit, and we started looking at the depth chart, and felt like he had a really good chance if he came in early, if he reclassified, that he could go in and earn that starting job day one. And so we jumped him, right? We skipped a whole year of his last year of high school, and he had to graduate from Mater Dei, which we loved and respected. So he ended up having, Mater Dei has very strict academic requirements, so he ended up taking 11 core classes his last semester of his junior year to be able to graduate with a Mater Dei diploma, and literally walked right from there onto USC's campus in June, and ended up winning the job to start the first game his freshman year.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. And honestly, we took a year of development off him, and if there was, there's a lot of things I would make recommendations differently, but that's probably the biggest one. Skipping that last year, thinking that he could transcend any issues. It was very obvious going in that that they were going through challenges on the offensive line, and he'll be able to just scramble by them and blah, all the stupid things you can convince yourself of a dad. I did, and he went early, and and got racked up pretty doggone good that freshman year.
Yeah, it's important that the kids don't get athletes don't get discouraged, but additionally, it's important that you give them a long sort of time frame to develop and give them the opportunity to do their best over a many-year arc, rather than forcing development or sort of taking a short-term approach to it. I think it's very important to maximize development.
So then I guess if you're good to move on, there, JT is one of a pretty well-known example of the transfer portal in college football. So how, I guess, like, what were his experiences and what were your experiences going through that as his college career went on?
Yeah, when you go to premier Power 5 programs, you're not the only good quarterback or player, right? They're 2 and 3 deep everywhere. So unfortunately, you get a serious injury and you're out for a year. It makes, it can change that depth chart. Slovis came in, had a good freshman year, and JT was coming off a knee injury. He wasn't going to be ready until, he wasn't even going to be ready for the beginning of the 2020 COVID year. So just made the difficult decision to get in the portal and see what else was out there. And, so that ended up getting him over to Georgia, right, where they had already taken a transfer guy. They had a room full of 4 and 5 star guys already, and JT just fell in love with Coach Monken's offense, who's now over at the Ravens doing his thing there, and they really hit it off. Monken could see he was JT was his kind of guy, and so he ended up going to Georgia, obviously, and got in midway through the season. I think he ended the year with the number 1 returning QBR in the country. And heck, after the media day, SEC media day 2021, he was the number 1 betting favorite to win the Heisman. Wow. So everything seemed like it was perfectly set up. Made the right decision, worked his butt off, and kept going. And unfortunately, when you look back at JT's career, you never saw anyone beat him out. And at the same time, you never saw him have a full season without getting an injury. And that ultimately was his undoing as a player. So, game 4, so it's very surreal. I mean, CBS was over the week before the Vanderbilt game, and they've got the booms, they've got all the professional stuff in. They're interviewing Allie, my wife, and I, JT's mom, for an hour. They're going to do this big piece. At the next game was the Tennessee game, or was the Arkansas game? I think was the Arkansas game. But they were going to do the next CBS game was going to be a big feature on JT, and he got a grade 2 lat strain in that game, and never played again for Georgia. Right. So that was a real challenging time to go through the injuries but I'll tell you, I was super proud of what a great teammate he was. And, he was there for Stet all the way through. And, it's really Georgia's to me is the best program in the country. And I don't know if it's even really close. The way Kirby gets these guys to buy in, to really love each other. You see them, everyone else has 4 or 5 NFL guys that are skipping their bowl games. Doesn't happen with Kirby, doesn't happen with this program. So it's just a top flight program that, one of the biggest things he does is get the guys to buy into each other and to be there for each other more so than for themselves, which, was a great experience. But the flip side of that is, it was pretty obvious near the end of that season, specifically after the NFC or the SEC championship game, which we lost, and there were many people heck on the sidelines, let alone fans clamoring to get JT back in there, and Kirby really believed that Stet was his guy and stuck with him. So it worked out. They won 2 national championships, so it is what it is. At the same time, because of that love for the program, this is something that I would be careful with if I were a parent and a player going forward. He could have went in the portal in December like everyone else does, and he stayed because he was supporting his team, and there's still a chance he could get in the game and get his job back, and et cetera. But by the time he went into the portal after the national championship game, there were 16 quarterbacks that were in the portal that went to Power 5 programs. So when JT actually got in, he ended up having, it was Missouri, West Virginia, and Oregon State, all great options. But the bigger point is, there were 15 other options that may have been better fits for JT that we passed. We didn't even get to take a look at. And who knows, maybe that none of them would have wanted JT, but I doubt that was the case. The point here is you really have to, as much as the team matters to you and your family, you got to think for yourself, or you've got to do what's best for yourself. The program is, right? They're bringing in transfers all the time as well. And if you're trying to do the team thing, which is very noble in many ways, you're really hurting yourself, unfortunately, in terms of the number of options you have available to you.
I found, it's pretty fascinating when the coaches talk about, we are family, or big kind of concepts that we're in this together, and, the team first, and all those things, which are really good concepts and can be great, but a lot of times football coaches tend to have a very specific desire for each athlete that may or may not line up with their particular skills or interests or whatever. And I've certainly seen that quite a few times with football coaches that have a team approach that really is kind of, it's their team. And so, I think a lot of times as parents, you got to be willing to sort of say, hey, this is what's best for the team, but maybe it's not best for my kid. But it's important to know your athletes' skills and abilities and interests in order to help them navigate just that complex balance, which is kind of difficult in football. My experience in basketball too is kind of fascinating. I've come across coaches where they're saying athletes are making requests and trying to play in a way that doesn't suit their abilities, but they have this confidence and desire that doesn't necessarily match up with their talents. And so balancing that as a difficult thing in basketball, because it's a different sport where it's the glory is in certain positions. And so a lot of times, same occurs in football, but it's crucial to help your athletes manage that process and understand that, the coaches have an embedded desire for unity and teamwork, which may or may not be productive for your child.
It's interesting, Joel, when you talk about knowing the program. It's you just never know, but it doesn't matter who the coach is. He may not be there next year, and if he's not there, there's a whole new group coming in, right? Saban, no one, the masses had no idea that Saban was going to retire, right? I mean, you would think, okay, if there's one place I could go, Saban saying he's playing coaching for more years, this is it, right? And you just don't know, though, in terms of the coach. If you can pick a school that you love, regardless of the coach, that is probably, if my recommendation is to do that. If you find the school you love, hopefully it's the right system, and hopefully the coach stays there. The coach loves you, and he stays there, and it works out. And it's so unlikely, unfortunately, in this world that will work out, that the coach actually stays at his job for 4 years and his offensive coordinator stays for 4 years, et cetera, et cetera. So
it's impossible to predict.
Yeah, exactly. It really, really is. And so there's a little bit of luck that goes into that. You just don't know until you actually, it transpires. But
yeah.
It's interesting you talk about, it's such a good point to know the school and to be happy with the education. I think a lot of times, football's a little bit different because there's so much scholarship money in it. But in other sports, there's a real desire of coaches to encourage the athletes to love the school and love the education and value that, because you just don't know what's going to happen with the sport and with their child's injuries or, everything else around it. Your athlete can be the star, but get injured and move on to, an academic based performance, which is more important in the long run. And so you don't want to be too myopic and focus on the sport and lose sight of kind of what you're getting out of this whole scholarship opportunity. So I wanted to touch on the NIL component of D1 sports now, and in terms of your experience. I believe JT was in college when NIL became available for people, and so you had a kind of an interesting experience with multiple teams providing NIL opportunities for you and kind of evaluating that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole NIL process. It's currently the Wild West with all the collectives being formed, and I believe there are some agents that work in it, and really would love to hear your experience with it. You know, were you the one arranging the NIL money? Was it you know, through collectives? What was the process like, and how did you manage it?
Yeah, no, it's the wild west for sure. We were exposed to it, starting in Georgia. JT started getting NIL deals as that first year, and um, so I was at Georgia. He had an agent that helped him with that, and after Georgia, I kind of took that on directly. There was only those three schools to deal with, and um, I would say I'm incredibly happy for kids to get the ability to get paid. I mean, it's such a violent game. Any play can be the end of it. Obviously the revenues that the kid that are made on these kids' backs, it's only equitable that they're getting paid something. I love the idea of paying everybody on the team versus just paying the quote unquote stars. And I think you're seeing more and more of that now that the collectives are out there. So I would, I would also say that I wouldn't make a decision based on which was the top dollar place. Right. You talk to agents, the agents will say, oh, well, get them to your final three, the schools that you all love, and then tell them, basically you can go to any three of these schools and, you'd be happy. And it's really going to come down to, what kind of NIL program you have. And I just think that's not, I don't agree with that way to go. I think you pick the best school, and whatever the best school for you, and whatever they're going to pay or whatever they're willing to pay you, you accept it. I would also say, there's something to be said that I'm going to contradict myself here, but you don't know the answer to this. When they're willing to pay you the most, that certainly tells you that they're the most interested, or that they're very interested in you, right? Whoever's willing to pay you the most money, it kind of makes sense that you're definitely going to be the starter. But I would tell you that, that's that, in JT's situation, West Virginia was the place that was willing to pay, the most by a significant amount, frankly. And both Oregon State and Missouri ultimately would have been better choices. And so, he went to West Virginia, and everything started great. And at one point, the coach realized he didn't have the team around JT to be a passing offense, so he switched the offense middle of the year to a run first offense. We were balanced up to that point, and then we went to a lot of QB runs, a lot of QB run centric play calling, first and second down in particular, and that really wasn't an offense that was well designed for JT. So he got good money for going there, but ultimately the midway through the season, when they switched the offense that they're running, it ended up being not the best decision. So that's why I say, go, Missouri, Oregon State, both of those schools, and West Virginia is a great program as well. They just ended up needing to go to a running quarterback style of play to complement that offensive line and probably lack of wide receiver talent that they had. They had great offensive line, maybe a little limited on the pass catching capability, and it ultimately caught up to us. And then bam, he was, trying to run quarterback runs, and that's not certainly not JT's thing. Yeah. Anyways, I hope that wasn't too much of a ramble, but the bottom line is pick the best place for you, especially when it's your last year. You're far more likely at that point that the coach is going to be there for that year. The system isn't going to change for that year, and you can go and take your shot to get to the league.
It's interesting how the financial commitment creates a commitment from the coach to try to play those players. I think that plays out in the size of the D1 scholarship, and also, particularly in NIL money. If you have a large contract out there, that's certainly going to play into playing time and their ability to, or their decision making around that particular player, in terms of their usage.
Yeah. I just kind of a general question for you. What if you had to say, like, I don't know, if you had to say, like, maybe your top three things that you learned with JT in terms of high school recruiting, and then in terms of college, what are those three biggest things that you feel you learned during those periods of his career?
Yeah, I would say number one, high school recruiting. That's kind of an odd question. I'm sorry, I'm taking it in an odd way, but it's true, right? The parochial schools can do that. So he was so comfortable with the program. Go where you're comfortable. Yeah. Number one, in high school, and in college, choose the college that you feel like you want to get a degree from. Because no matter how good you are, right? I mean, JT was the state player two times, right? As a sophomore and a junior, the California Gatorade Player of the Year, the National Gatorade Player of the Year, the Athlete of the Year. Him and LeBron James and 25 other people have won that award, right? So you at that point, you're like, oh my God, this is, we just got to keep him healthy and go through 3 years of college, and bam, he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Yeah. Well, as much as everyone feels that way, going through it, there's only a couple that actually get to that point, whether it's injuries or whatever else can get in the way. So choose the best school for you that you want to get a degree from. Realize that degree is going to be more important to you, because you're not going to play football until you're 65, but you're probably going to work till you're 65. So get the right education. Hope the coaches work out for you, but get the right education. And then the last thing is, you, as much as you want to be a team guy and do the right things for the team, if you're in a situation where there's a portal thing going on, you've got to do what's right for your family, right? If it's, it's a lot easier for me to say, JT, just get your degree, right? And it's easier to say that when, he's coming from, a background where he's got, quite a skill set from an aptitude perspective. And whether he plays football or not, JT's going to be fine, right? Well, that's some families that may not be the case, and you really gotta, go for it and go for the league. I don't recommend it, but I certainly understand and respect why some choose that path. And if that's the path that you've chosen, then don't do the team. Do what's best for you, because that's what the coaches are doing too. Then and the schools, it's a business. This today more than ever, it's a business. And get into that other than having JT skip his last year, I think back and wonder if he would have gotten the portal, and when the portal opened up after the 21 season versus after 15 or 16 D1 spots were filled up, right? What that could have led to in terms of so many different things, right? But because we did team first, he wanted to do team first. He ended up with a lot less options.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Had a blast, guys. Had a blast. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks so much, Steve. That was episode 7 of Going D1 Real Recruiting Stories with Joel Gruen and Gunnar Gruen. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Appreciate it.